Welcome back, everybody. I am so excited to have my good friend Autumn Clifford back on the show. It's been a minute, and I don't know what the hell's going on with my Zoom. We were talking a little bit before we started, Autumn. I see your pretty face. Maybe I don't know.
I have your pretty face. I can see your picture.
I have no idea. Maybe there's a balloon flying above me, but I apologize for that. So welcome back. You're amazing. You're doing so much great work with first responders and the female first responder world. So for those people who don't know you, Autumn, which I find it hard to believe because you're all over the place.
Oh, geez. I literally am all over the place.
Who is, I meant that in a good way. I meant, you're a big influencer and you're doing so much work. But for those people out there who don't know who you are, who is Autumn? And what's a little bit about your background?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me back on. We've been on each other's shows over the years, I think a couple of times, which has been really fun. So I think it's fun to go back and listen. I know your podcast is a lot like mine. It's kind of like a blog. Go back and listen. And I'm not taking it down because I want people to hear. So definitely go back and listen to our episodes together. I think would be really fun for anybody who is interested. But my name obviously is Autumn Clifford, and I've been doing this. I've been coaching professionally for the last 8 years. I'm a speaker, a podcast host. We host in-person workshops. I work with retired Navy SEAL Jason Redman. Doing a lot of like survival trainings and stuff like that. And where I come from and kind of how we met, Pat, and why I'm on the CJEvolution podcast is I have been a police officer since I've been 20 years old, 26 and a half. The half always counts. I was injured. I was injured in the line of duty. I don't have a good I don't have like a cool story. I wasn't doing anything interesting. I just have a back injury, but that back injury has changed my life. I have a herniated, torn, and degenerative disc all in my lowest back. The tear is almost all the way through. It was a 50% partial tear. And that was what was scary because we didn't know what was going to happen. I wasn't a candidate for surgery. And so basically overnight, I was told you can't do patrol anymore. And I felt like I lost my whole entire identity. I went through an identity crisis, a deep depression. I was couch ridden for 6 months while I was trying to heal, because every time I would stand or sit for long periods, my bottom half would go numb. My entire legs would go numb. And so, as you can imagine, made it pretty hard to do much. But it was at that point that I started, after a 6-month deep depression and anxiety stricken state, I started a coaching business. I was like, you know what, I'm going to take my training, education, and experience, apply it to help people. And here I am today doing the thing, still helping the people. And yeah.
Amazing. Would you change anything? Well, I'm glad you're better now, and you served, honorably as a police officer. You don't have to have a cool story of, in my opinion, well, I was chasing down a suspect and all, you served, Autumn. And so I thank you for your service. If you could change anything, would you change anything? Would you, if you could go back and say, all right, just, make things happen and say, all right, I don't have this injury. Would you change anything, or are you glad things happened the way they did?
I think I'm glad for the most part of the way that things happened. I mean, obviously, I don't want this injury because it's still like I'm actually like I still work with a chiropractor very consistently. And I'm working with a fitness coach, but then I just hired this fitness coach's spouse who actually trains special operators who get injured. So he works with SEALs and special ops guys that get injured, and he heals them in a very short amount of time. I just started working with him because I'm sick and tired of everything I do. My back is killing me and it's preventing me from doing all these things. So I wish that part didn't happen because I'm a second-degree black belt. I've been studying the martial arts since I've been 5 years old. But since my back injury, I've tried to get back into it. But these big motherfuckers kill me. They do. Whereas like I was used to, grappling with them and kickboxing with them and getting my head like literally kicked in by them, and it was fine. Like I was good, but now I can't do that. And that really messes with me a little bit.
But there's
But
been
yeah,
you probably hear it, Autumn. I mean, you see it too. There is remarkable stories out there of recovery from injuries, and I don't have to tell you, but for the listener, I mean, a lot of it, I believe, is mindset. I mean, you have to. Well, I think the mind. We all know the mind is very powerful,
yes.
and I think the mind can overcome just about anything. I mean, look at Jason Redman. You named him. Obviously, devastating injuries when he was on the battlefield over in Afghanistan. I can't remember. It was Afghanistan. Got shot up. And I remember him telling me, and he's probably told you, I mean, it's the loss of his arm, obviously his face, but it's that will to heal your body and you got to put in the work, like, but
everything starts in your mind,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. And another thing, you have youth on your side, which always helps, and so, yeah, I hope that gets better. I hope it does.
It will. Thank you. It will.
And I see you, your reels and all that stuff where you're working out, you're doing such amazing work, keeping in shape. So hope it gets better. Sorry, you're still in pain.
Thank you. Yeah. So as far as to go back to that, yeah, I mean, I would like to change that aspect, but here's the thing is, I didn't get into law enforcement for, I would say like, I'm not gonna like say typical reasons. I don't know. I got into law enforcement to really become a role model. When I was younger, I didn't really have a solid role model that I felt cared about me genuinely. And as far as an older, stronger woman who I could relate to, because I grew up, I was a tomboy and proud of it, right? But like when, playing with my cousins, playing football on tar, like just not right in the head, but you did it. We all did it back then. I don't know. We did that. That's what I did is I hung out with the boys all of the time, grew up with them in martial arts, getting the shit kicked out of me. Like that's what I grew up doing. And so I just always knew like, okay, like I'm not like to me, I'm like, I'm not like this feminine, normal girl. Like I was not, I just wasn't, and if you see my body, like I am not little. I am built. My mom calls me, solid. Yeah, you're just solid. That's what she'll say. And I am. And so, that coupled with my martial arts career, I said, I need to do something. My sensei was a police officer. An uncle that I loved was a police officer. I always thought I wanted to be one. I was too scared to be one. But anyways, after like long story short, college, thinking I wanted to be an attorney, working with judges, and actually a judge liked me, took me under her wing, and actually wrote me up a letter to get me into law school. And I was like, and I interviewed several judges, and like I was gonna go down that like route. And then I sat down with a drug enforcement guy and fell in love with what he did. I'm like, no, this is what I actually want to do. And anyways, so I become a police officer, but I really became one because I really wanted to serve women, young girls. I wanted to be there. I mean, that's not a typical reason to get into law enforcement. Okay. So like, it's not that I didn't do my job. Of course I did my job. And I would like to say I did it well. But I wasn't there to just arrest everybody.
Yeah. Well, there's more to law enforcement than just, and anybody, well, I shouldn't say everybody knows that, but you're exactly right. There's more to law enforcement than driving 100 miles an hour, kicking in doors, arresting bad guys. That's a very small percentage of it. A lot of it, as you know, Autumn, is coaching, mentoring, inspiring the younger generation. How difficult was it as a female law enforcement officer? I mean, can you speak to some of that? I mean, obviously you're in a male dominated profession. It's been like that. I think it'll always be like that. How can you talk about, if you're willing to talk about some of the challenges you faced being a female police officer in an agency and how you overcame them?
Well, so I focus a lot of my time now on women who want to get into the law enforcement career. And you know, my offering really is about creating self-reliant, independent women. Okay. So I want everybody to know that I've had the opportunity for the last, 8 years, I've coached hundreds of women in law enforcement, and as well as in other first responding capacities. And the stories are kind of very much the same as mine. To be honest, there's not really much differing across the country. It's pretty much the same. Now, listen, I'm going to say this. There are agencies that are up with the times. They're very fair. They treat their women great. And there is not like a severe amount of sexism going on. But I can tell you that there still are a lot of agencies where there is. Okay. I also would like to say that in the same breath, I didn't ever want to be treated different than a man, wanted to be treated exactly the same as my counterparts. When I was taking my PT tests, especially in the academy, when I started really to understand, like my first PT test that you take for like entry, I think everybody's like, just make sure I hit the fucking minimum. Like I just need to pass, right? So, but once I started actually training with the guys and really starting to understand, like, wait a minute, this is so much more than a PT test. This is how I'm being judged by the counterparts who know that, like, I am going to have their back. Like, I'm going to be working alongside them. So it was at that point, every PT test I took in the academy, it wasn't about hitting like the female standards. It was like, no, like I'm going to hit the male standards. I'm going to make sure that I am with them. And I think, Pat, like, I want to say this is like, I think it's important for us as women to want to be on the same playing field. A lot of us do. Do we get treated that way? No. We are judged. But here's another thing, like, it's not just women. Like the culture of law enforcement, choose its own, choose each other up, spits each other out. We eat our own, men or women. I will say that I do think that we are harder on women, hands down. So in some instances, I understand it because I was very hard on myself and I was hard on other women. But I'm going to tell you right now, there was a lot of male cops that I would not want to go into a fight with, and I would take my female FTO. I'm going to tell you right now, she, at the time that she was training me, she had 16 years on the road. She was a cop out in Michigan, and then she came and became a cop in Maine. I would fucking take her to this day. I would take her into a fight over a lot of the male counterparts. And that had nothing to do with her sex. It had everything to do with her heart, like how
her ability. Yeah.
Oh, fuck. I mean, just right. So I think, I think we get judged pretextually a lot. I think that people really think that we are weak. We're the weaker sex. And I think, if we're going to talk about like strength, okay, yeah, we are the weaker sex when it comes to upper body strength. Have you checked out what a woman could do with her lower body? Because it smokes men. Like, I'm not getting sexual. I'm talking about.
No, you're exactly right. Well, you're exactly right. I just asked because there's a recent case, and I'm sure you've heard of it, Autumn. I think it's in Laverne, Tennessee, where there was a big, huge. A lot of officers were implicated as I think it was centered around one female officer who was involved in, some sexcapades, or whatever you want to call it. And there's a big shakeup down there. And I could see that happening and I agree with you. Some cultures are better than others in organizations. But I think, it starts with the leadership, and it starts with the tone that is set in the organization. But yeah, I look at some of these stories, and like this one I just mentioned. And go ahead.
Because so one of the things that I do is I go, and I've been going across the country hosting my company is called She's an Asset. And it's a mindset, emotional resiliency, and self-leadership course specifically for women. And I've been teaching it across the country at police departments. The last one that I just taught, I actually put Megan Hall in my slideshow. And I'm going to just say this. It is very triggering. The conversation that I have with these women is very triggering for a lot of women. And I'm going to say this. Back when I was on the road, I would have felt the same way as them. why is it okay that she is sleeping around to get to where she wants to go, but I never did that? And so like she makes me look bad, quote unquote. That is what a lot of these women are saying. Here's what I would like to say. Now that I'm the coach that I've been for the last 8 years, I'm out, I'm still a part-time police officer, but that is literally just to keep my credentials. I run a community policing program and I just run their social media. I'm not on the road. I'm not on patrol. So I'm really out of the culture, right? Like the only in I'm in as far as is coaching my clients. So I'm not doing the day-to-day. And I brought this up and I said, okay, we're going to talk about her. And here's how I feel about this. I don't know her. I don't know the situation, but I have been on the other side of this shit. And a lot of women have. Don't kid yourselves. A lot of women in law enforcement have been on the other side. Whether they know it or not is the key. They might not know it, that they've been the butt of several friggin' jokes amongst the guys, whether it's interdepartmental or it's just around the area, oh, she's a female. She's fucked, she seems to be close with her sergeant, so she's fucking him and she's on her knees and she's this and she's that. And the fucking poor woman probably is none of it. Yeah. But that's good, right? So I bring it up and I said to the girls, I said, okay, let's talk about this. If she actually did sleep with 5 men at her department, okay, let's talk about it. Could it be that she was trying to fucking fit in, trying to find her place, okay? She obviously has holes in her, right? So I get into this whole spiel in my trainings, Pat, where I talk about how we try to fill our holes, like we like fill our holes with people or substances or just outside, things instead of internally trying to fill ourselves up. So she obviously had some holes that she was trying to fill. And so why can't we look at her and be like, shit, like, girl, like, let's support her instead of like cut her down. And then it's like, well, she makes us look bad. Wait a minute. Time out. Does she make us look bad or is our culture making us look bad? Because how many men do we know? I know men that will go right through a fucking nurse's unit. One cop will fuck at least 5 nurses and on a floor, and it's no problem. We're going to give him a pat on the ass.
Yeah.
The men that sleep with women, female cops will sleep with all 3 at the agency or whatever. And they get, Johnny, he's a stud. How was that? Whatever, no problem. But, we have a woman who's doing it. And so now she is all of these things. So is it like, we need to be asking ourselves these things. Is she making us look bad, or is the culture?
I agree. I think it's it's definitely the culture, and being a man, I can say that, and I agree with you. So if again, it goes back to what we were talking about. Every culture, every agency is different, but if she thought that this was the only way to get ahead, or this was the only way to advance, and it takes 2, Autumn, too. So I mean, I'm not condoning what she did, but there's guys involved in this. So where is their culpability? Where is their accountability? It's just not all on this woman,
I just can't even fathom that it made like front page newspaper. I mean, it's just, that's the culture though. That is the issue. Because if a guy did this wouldn't even be in the newspapers, because it happens all the time. It happens all the time. And I just want to say this. Do we actually think she was sleeping to get ahead? I don't think she was sleeping with anybody to get ahead. I think if she was actually sleeping with these men and it was consensual, which we don't know, and I don't care what anybody says, you have no idea.
You have no idea. I mean, being in that situation where you can get pressured, you can get hazed, you can get,
absolutely.
I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios that are coming, that I've read that, she was being sexually harassed and she was being forced, literally, she was being threatened, not physically, but, kind of coerced. You do this or this is not going to happen. So again, I'm not saying that, I'm not condoning it, but it's just like, where is the accountability for the people that maybe have caused this?
Yeah, that's the problem in the culture. And here's the thing is, people think that this is one scenario. This is not one scenario. This happens all the time. I know it because I have the women that show up and they're like, you're never going to believe what happened to me. I was, coerced to do this, or I didn't do it and I got fired, or I didn't do it and now I'm
and however this plays out, I mean, it's just this woman now is she is going to receive, and she already has so much shit from now until whenever, you know what I mean? It's just like, how do you recover from this? I mean, in an era of, information obviously at our fingertips, and, her career in law enforcement's probably done, probably.
But you know what? Maybe until she finds a solid female chief who's a solid leader. Because I'll tell you right now, I'd take her. You come right with me. And if you are actually causing these issues, I'm going to help you so that you fill your own holes. Like, and what I mean by that, people think like take that sexually. That's not what I mean.
No, I need the emptiness or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, exactly. Like the holes in your body, in your soul. Like,
yeah,
exactly. Let's teach you how to fill the emptiness.
I agree. I mean, I think some people, and maybe not everybody, but in this particular case, and again, I don't know all the ins and outs, but she can be salvaged, and she can, maybe that's not a good word, but like you said, I mean, you get with a strong female chief or DC or whatever, deputy chief, and she gets, some good solid mentorship and, inspiration and taken under somebody's wing. Yeah. You never know.
Yeah. And I'm happy to tell you my story. So when I was 20 years old, I had been on the road for 3 months. Not on the road. I was just on the job, because at that time I was working in court security, and I got hired as a court security officer. So my job was to protect the judges and do some screening for court security. And then they liked me and they hired me to also do transport. So I was working in and out of correctional facilities, transporting inmates. It was very, very dangerous. I was not trained. And they would put me with like 10 inmates to myself, this little 20-year-old girl who has no training, had never been to the academy, nothing. What saved me is, I think, my personality. Like, I just got to know these inmates, and the majority of them, not all, but the majority of them weren't bad people. They just fucked up. Like, they just got OUI. And like, they would start looking out for me. Like, they would be like, no one's going to talk shit to you. And like, they started getting really protective of me. And like, they just kind of, the pack, like, it was good. But thank God, Pat, because can you imagine a 20-year-old little girl with 10 inmates in a van, transporting them across the fucking state all by themselves? Like, all the things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
And that's my job. But yeah, go ahead.
No, go. I was just going to say, well, a lot of that is, obviously you're a good communicator. You got a great personality. You know how to build those, those connections and relationships, which is testament to how you were raised and all that stuff. But anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No. And so I got mixed up. So there was a deputy who I worked with who was my senior, and I thought that he was taking me under his wing to help me. That's what it appeared to be. He happened to be a quote unquote minister. He was married, had 2 beautiful children. His wife worked in the courthouse. And we ended up having to go do an extradition, which was going across states. We had to fly down to Florida, and we had to go get a female prisoner. During that time, one thing led to another, and I ended up sleeping with him. And I was 20 years old. This man was 36. Again, married, 2 kids, senior officer. I have 3 months on the road, not on the road, but on the job. And I was made out to be a fucking homewrecker. All of these things. I mean, the reputation, my reputation was completely trashed. Now, let me just tell you what ended up happening to him. He tells his wife that he's in love with me. I did see him a couple more times because I didn't, oh my God, this guy's in love with me. I'm 20. I'm like, oh my God, is this true? Is this real? Like, what should I be doing? And then, the whole like, stick with me and I'm gonna help you with your career. And I'm like, oh fuck, like, all these things going on. I take my 50%. I take full responsibility of everything I did. but he ends up divorcing his wife. Him and I stopped talking after like a month, 2 months, like we just, whatever. He goes and gets with a correctional officer, beats the shit out of her, gets fucking arrested, gets fired from this place, gets hired at a local podunk police department, gets with another woman, beats the shit out of her, and now he's decertified. And so like but during the time, Pat, I was this home wrecker. I was a slut. Yeah. I was all these things. Nobody was like, wait a minute, she's 20 years old.
Yeah.
Like, what could he have put in her head? And I had to, and listen, I had senior men coming to me being like, hey, listen, you may want to move and move 2 hours south and start the job down there. I have connections. I'll help you because your reputation is like, you're going to have a hard time building it. And I said, you know what? No, I'm going to put my head down and I'm going to rebuild. And this is what happened. I did that. I worked with very, very senior veteran officers. I'm talking guys like retired that came back. And I worked with 50 and 60-year-old men who really taught me about police work. I think every young officer should go and get FTO'd by these guys. They really taught me, like, guys you probably worked with, Pat, like just like loyalty, having each other's backs. We don't stab each other in the back. Like we have each other's back. Like, right. So like I got trained by them. I ended up rebuilding my reputation based solely off of my work, to the point where a neighboring agency, the major, gave me a chance. And he pulled me aside and he said, listen, I've heard what happened. I don't know what the truth is. And that's really none of my business. I just want to know, are we going to have problems here? Do you think? Like, what do you think? And I said, no, we're not going to have any problems. I'm going to do my job. That's it. If the men give me shit, I will talk to you about it. You will be the first one to know. And he said, okay, that sounds good. If any of my guys give you shit, please come to me. But like, we're good. And I'm like, no, we're good. And you know what, Pat? He gave me a chance. And that was a solid leader. And when I left that agency to move 2 hours south to be with my husband, he told me I'd always have a job. Like, you come back anytime. Right. So I just want to say there are leaders out there that give opportunities. It's just few and far between.
Yeah. And I admire you, Autumn, because you're not like making fucking excuses and saying, well, you took responsibility for it, which some people do and some people don't. And here's the thing. When it comes to talking shit about people, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. You've heard that before. We all have shit in our past. We all have stuff in our past. Some we're not too proud of. I know I do. And, we were talking about this before we started, about supporting each other in law enforcement. You see a lot of, I know you've dealt with this, where people are like talking crap and they're like, I just don't get it. If you have an opinion, you don't need to voice it on social media or whatever. You know what I mean? I just don't get it. We need to do a better job, you said earlier, of supporting each other in law enforcement. We all have shit.
Yep.
We all have crap. If you think you're beyond reproach and no bullshit. You got shit in your background too.
Yeah.
I just think, to your point, and I know because I saw it in my agencies that I work for, women sometimes are treated a little bit differently. Well, she had a comment, she was the one flirting with me, and no bullshit. It takes two.
It takes two. I think we really have to remember that it takes two. But again, we are living in a culture that is male dominated, and it's easier to blame. It's easier to blame. It's easier not to take responsibility. I mean, whatever, and that's why my big push, it's why I do what I do, is like, I can't change the culture, but I can help these women become self-reliant and confident in themselves. So when this shit does happen, because it's going to, and when it does, it doesn't take you out. That's the whole thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for those listeners out there, you need to follow Autumn. She's amazing. And I see your testimonials, Autumn, because you're not just out there getting a speech. I mean, you really motivate and inspire the females that are in your workshops and you're speaking to, because I see your testimonials. I see you posting, look, you changed my life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you are actually one of those people out there that actually, not only talks the talk, but walks the walk. You're providing such a valuable service to young women out there in a dominated male profession. And I think we need more people like you out there. And fuck the haters.
Well,
fuck
and like, let's talk about that real quick. So even that has followed me. So, but I talk about haters in my training. She's an asset, because it's important. Okay. My haters taught me, they taught me so much, and they don't even know it. So like, thank you. Because in 2022 was one of the hardest times in my life as far as professionally, because I started working with a really cool training company for law enforcement. And we had great success together. There was nothing wrong. It's just that we looked at business a little bit different. And I'm not a police officer who, like, the whole company is police officers, and the majority of them. And so it wasn't a great fit. I'm a coach. Here's the deal. Autumn was not clear on that. Autumn was still like, I was, I built a brand called Officer Autumn. I didn't look at it as like, I'm still Autumn. I was looking at Officer Autumn, like, to help women and to help, like, Officer Autumn was like this brand, but that wasn't what it looked like. And that's fine. Okay. But the way that it got presented to me was pretty much, it felt like the entire internet in law enforcement blew up on me. A lot of people were jealous of what I was doing with this company, and they just came at me, but all year long. They would call me a fraud. They would say, like, they'll pick apart my teeth. They'll pick apart my looks. They'll pick apart. They say that what I charge money for should be free. That I don't know anything. I don't know what I'm talking about, that I was never a cop. I've heard that. I've heard that all I ever was an auxiliary cop, but I don't even know what an auxiliary cop is. We don't have those. Like, I've heard that I've been just a security officer. Well, I've never worked security, like court security, but I was a deputy. So like, I don't really know, but I've heard all of these things about myself. Some of it is kind of true, just taken out of context. I've heard that, some things. So we do have people that are clearly close to me or who worked with me, right? Who know some of my story, but take it all out of context to make me look obviously awful. We have people out there doing that. And here's what I want to tell people is, like, and I'm not talking 3, 4, 5, 10 people. I'm talking 50, 60, 70.
I remember you telling me about this, a
people,
while ago.
And we're talking influencers in whatever that means, but people with large following counts, whether it's real or whether it's not. We're really talking like people. Like, this is not just bullshit. Some of it's made up, but some of it's actual people, and they just shit all over me. And I'll never forget the day that Jason Redman announced that I was one of his coaches. The internet blew up on his post. But you know what? He said, okay. I'm going to do a background check on her. Please DM me everything you know and send me your resume, because he needs to know who the fuck he's talking to. Do you know not one of those haters DM'd him and said, here's my resume and here's everything you need to know about her? But you know what he did? He did such an extensive background check on me. He talked to former chiefs, former bosses, my former patrol partner. He talked to clients. My clients were reaching out to him, I didn't even ask them to. They're reaching out to him and they're like, listen, I've been coaching with her for years. Let me tell you who she really is. Here's my resume. Here's my number. Fucking call me. He does, because he's like, no, like, I'm going to do my due diligence. All of it was unfounded except the story I just talked to you about. Right. But what I'm trying to say is this: I had a choice. Was I going to allow it to take me out, or was I going to learn from it, Pat? And I think we have to also hold space for learning from what our detractors are saying, because what they said, they weren't wrong. Officer Autumn, you're a fraud. What they were trying to say is, well, you're not a full-time cop anymore. Why are you using Officer Autumn? Fair.
Who gives a fuck?
Right. But they've only made me better.
Yeah.
they've only made me better, but I will tell you, I've told you personally, like it was the hardest year of my life.
I know.
2022, for 6 months, I didn't even work. I couldn't, because every time I looked on social media, it was all memes about me. There's podcasts, these fucking podcasts about me, these big meme pages coming after me. Why? Because can they really deal with a strong woman saying what nobody else is saying?
That's the thing. I look at like you, who's popular, doing great things. When people are attacking you, I think you're on the right path. And I know you are, because I've known you for a long time. When people, they're jealous, whatever the fucking reason is, if you are striking a nerve and people are attacking you, keep charging and going forward and keep doing what you're doing. Again, for a variety of reasons. And we're really stuck out to me, Autumn, and what you just said is not one of those fucking people. When Redmond was doing his background check, came forward and saying, and I think I love about you is that you're like, yeah, some of it's true, it's just taken out of context. But when you are successful, like you are, and you're very influential, and people are attacking you, if people aren't attacking you, you're doing something wrong, because you're striking a nerve. You're dealing with their insecurities. They're like, oh, well, fuck, why can she do this? And
Right.
it's just, fuck them. Who cares? But I know when you're going through that, it's very, very, very tough.
And I think that's the equivalent of what a lot of women in law enforcement go through. I just went through it. I have also went through it on the job. I could tell you guys stories. I could talk about how, like, one of the stories that stands out to me is the sergeant who I was actually really close with, like, and I got accused of sleeping with him. Although I'm going to tell you right now, that never happened. Not even close. We only saw each other at work, and we were nothing but professional. Yep. But we had a mutual understanding. I led his shift in numbers, so admin would, I kept it so admin wasn't up his ass. And you know what? He just was never up my ass. We had a mutual understanding. And I don't, this is public. I had a very hard time on the overnights. Come 3 a.m., you can ask anybody who worked with me. It didn't matter. I had a hard time staying up. And, unless we were busy. If we were busy, that's fine. But when we weren't busy, I had a hard time. From 3 to 5 was a really hard time for me. So he always just said, just go to the PD. Like, I don't want you sleeping in your fucking car. I don't want you like driving around. I'm going to crash into a tree. Just go to the PD, work on a report. If you happen to like take a little nap, whatever, but I know you're at the PD. And some of the guys took that. I was right in the patrol room. I was not in any place.
Yeah, they took it and ran with it.
Oh yeah. I remember, good on this, but I remember one of my partners like going like car to car with me and being like, hey, do you and this like sergeant, like everyone's talking that like you guys have a thing? And I'm like, of course everyone's talking. No, we don't have a thing. He's like, I didn't think so, but I just wanted to talk to you about it. But the point I was getting at is we're in briefing one night, and I was eating a raw egg. Now, let's just be honest. They don't smell good, right? And I'm the whole shift is there, and he comes in and he goes, Jesus Christ, Clifford, close your legs.
Oh,
and
wow.
Once he said it, he was like, fuck, I shouldn't have said that. And I felt like I felt so betrayed. I was like, wait a minute, like what? Like that just came out of your mouth, and like and we're all kind of That's laughing horrible. that awkward, like, yeah. I can't believe you just said that. And I'm like, and I'm looking at my other partner who's like a 50-year-old guy, and his eyes, he's doing that awkward laugh too, looking at me like, holy fuck, I can't believe you just said that. Like, we're all, and the thing is, Pat, that is what a lot of women would deal with all of the time, just like that. Yeah. And I didn't do anything to deserve that. It was just, and I'm going to say, like, I don't think he meant anything by it. I think he was trying to just bust my balls, really, truly.
Yeah, but there, you know your audience and know that you're in there, and
But that was like, yeah, that was offensive, right?
Yeah, it's like, very, very offensive. And now, because there was already talk about something possibly going on with you and this guy, and then when you say something stupid like that, then it just kind of it gets more people talking even more.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's ridiculous. So as we wrap up, Autumn, I know you got a jet. I mean, for the young women out there, or the women in general, and who want to get into the first responder field, i.e., let's talk about law enforcement. What advice, I'm sure you get this all the time, what advice do you give women who want to step into law enforcement? What some words of wisdom from my friend Autumn Clifford?
Well, the first thing is that you can do it. Even if people around you tell you can't, you can do it, but you better want it for the right reasons.
Absolutely.
And that's really goes for men too. Like, I mean, this job has completely changed even since I've been out,
Absolutely.
and you too. And it's different today. And it's hard. It's harder than now than it's ever been. And if you want this job, then you better want it for all the right reasons. That's it.
Yeah. And Autumn, for the listener out there, she goes into detail. Please follow her. Detail will be in the show notes. But Autumn, you talk about this. You talk about like the hiring process. You talk about oral boards. You talk about all the obstacles that you're going to have to face and hopefully overcome before you get a cop, because you've been there.
Yeah.
Amazing. Autumn Clifford. How can people find you, my friend?
Yeah. So
I mean, since you're all over the fucking internet.
I don't know if I'm all
in a good way.
Internet, but...
You got like 1 billion followers on Instagram.
No, I don't. You're so so you can find me at the Autumn Clifford on Instagram, and then it's at Autumn Clifford on all of the socials. And I have a podcast that is designed specifically for women, and it's called She's an Asset.
Autumn Clifford, you are amazing. You are a good friend of mine. I will always support you. Keep up the fantastic work, and you are always welcome back.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.